Please be seated. Routine proceedings. Oh, the honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Speaker, is there leave for the following? On November 7th, 2024, at the top of orders of the day, government business, the House shall consider concurrence and third reading of Bill 209, the Provincial Court Amendment Act, expanded training for judges and judicial justices of the peace, with the question to be put by 4 p.m. if it has not already been dealt with.
Is there leave for the following on November 7th, 2024, at the top of orders of the day, government business? The House shall consider concurrence and third reading of Bill 209, the Provincial Court Amendment Act, expanded training for judges and judicial justices of the peace, with the question to be put by 4 p.m. if it has not already been dealt with. Is there leave? No. Leave has been denied. The honourable member for Roblin.
House business, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Roblin on House business.
I seek leave to allow the opposition House Leader to call Bill 221, the Earlier Screening for Breast Cancer Act, to a committee of this House before the end of the first session of the 43rd Legislature, no later than October 30th.
Hear, hear.
Is there leave to allow the opposition House Leader to call Bill 221, the Earlier Screening for Breast Cancer Act, to a committee of this House before the end of the first session of the 43rd Legislature, no later than October 30th? Is there leave? Leave has been denied. Routine proceeding, introduction of bills. Committee reports. Tabling of reports. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, in accordance with Rule 78(9), I am tabling a revised sequence for the consideration of the departmental estimates for today only.
Ministerial statements. Member statements. The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Since its founding in 1967, the University of Winnipeg has fostered a diverse, multicultural, and academic community committed to excellence in education. Convocation is a momentous occasion that celebrates the journey of every graduate. As the University of Winnipeg marks its 125th convocation anniversary this week, I am thrilled to congratulate the class of 2024. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to all faculty and staff for their countless hours spent teaching and mentoring students. Despite challenging circumstances, including a pandemic, their dedication to our students equips them for the world ahead. The University of Winnipeg's graduates come from literally all over the world. Currently, 375 students will be graduating from the university this Friday, and those graduates represent 22 different urban and rural communities, while the remaining come from 21 different countries. It is our responsibility to ensure that these faculty and their guests, and these students and their guests feel welcome and appreciated. An honorary Doctor of Letters will be awarded to Dr. Stephen Boris, Director and CEO of the Winnipeg Art Gallery. The Distinguished Alumni Award will be presented to Rosa Walker, a member of Peguis First Nation and a business leader who has served Indigenous communities for over 40 years. Kate Binay C.O.G. Chi Dokwe McDonald will be honored as a valedictorian for the milestone of the 125th convocation ceremony. With approximately 9,000 undergraduate and graduate students per year, the U of W provides an exceptional education with more access to faculty, real-world learning, and research opportunities that are very unique. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating some of the graduates and the faculty and staff who have joined us here today, and I'd ask that their names be entered into the permanent record of answered. Congratulations and welcome.
Before proceeding to the next member statement, there's some guests in the gallery that are leaving shortly, so I'd like to introduce them before they leave. We have seated in the public gallery from Emmanuel Christian and Dufferin Christian Schools, 43 grade 4 students under the direction of Marian van der Hoemelen and Sandra van der Woeld. Sorry about that. The group is located in the constituency of the Honourable Member for Radisson and Midland. The Honourable Member for Roblin.
Honourable Speaker, with October being Seniors Month, it is a great pleasure to rise in the House today to recognize two fantastic organizations located in the Roblin constituency, the Charleswood Active Living Centre and Headingley Senior Services. Following the dedicated efforts of many community members, the Charleswood Senior Centre was established in 2000 when it officially opened one room in Royal School. Over the last 2 decades, they have grown by leaps and bounds, and they no longer occupy a little room in Royal School. Their name has evolved too to become the Charleswood Active Living Centre. And believe me, this is a very active group, so the name suits them well. The center is a great place to meet new friends, pursue your interests, try new activities, and stay physically active. In just a few short months, the Charleswood Active Living Center will not only be celebrating their 25th anniversary, but will see a move into a new building, which will include a fitness room, arts and crafts space, multi-purpose room, kitchen facilities, and a large outdoor patio. Headingley Senior Services was incorporated in February of 1996, close to 29 years ago. Their mandate has evolved over the years, and their goal today is to encourage older adults to maintain independent living and improve their quality of life by providing education, recreation, health, and social opportunities. They have a plethora of learning opportunities, social events, fitness and fun, as well as weekly lunch and learns. This coming Friday and Saturday, they'll host the Headingley Holiday Market, which features over 25 crafters and artists. This event is not only a great chance to get a head start on your Christmas shopping, it's also their biggest fundraiser, helping to support the services and programs they provide to the older adults of Headingley. I'd like to ask all members to join me in recognizing board members of the Charleswood Active Living Centre, Sherry Mooney, Daniel Graham, Mary McCormick, Janice Hamilton, Diana Simpson, and Maxine Bryan, as well as the resource coordinators of the Headingley Senior Services, Margot Price and Christy Todd, who join us in the gallery today. On behalf of all the residents of Charleswood and Headingley, thank you for all that you do for seniors in the beautiful constituency of Roblin.
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today I would like to congratulate a pillar in the Rossmere community, the McLeod Education Centre, on their 25th year anniversary. McLeod Education Centre is a space that allows adults to either gain a high school diploma or take courses that are required to further education. They offer courses such as math, sciences, and English, as well as digital photography, law, and much more. I want to give a warm welcome to Jen Harris, who is here today and is the director of McLeod Education Centre, joins us in the gallery. Over the 25 years they have been operating, more than 1,600 adults have earned their high school diploma through the center's program, and thousands more have improved their credits or taken classes necessary for continuing education. The McLeod Education Centre is an important staple in our community because it proves that it is never too late to upgrade your education level. The center ensures that everyone has the opportunity to invest in themselves and their futures. The center is open not just to Rossmere community members, but to everyone who is willing to apply and learn at the center. What is great about the McLeod Education Center is that there are no course fees for students working towards completing a high school diploma. The Adult Learning and Literacy branch of Manitoba Education is what funds the program, which helps break down financial barriers that many adult learners face. If you have graduated with a high school diploma, you can also take up to 4 extra credit courses at no cost. On top of this, they also have special language exams and recognition of prior learning program, helping students from all walks of life to achieve their learning goals. The center's key values are respect, connection, honesty, and growth. Their value to create meaningful experiences and possibilities for their students amplifies the importance of the center in the Rossmere community. They are dedicated to creating a safe, caring environment for everyone that comes to their building. This is what we want to see in any community organization or school. I ask my colleagues to join me in congratulating Jen Harris and the McLeod Education Center on their 25 years of success and encouraging folks that it is never too late to go back to school.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Fort White.
Honorable Speaker, October is Disability Employment Awareness Month. I want to share a truly inspiring experience I had last week, Friday, Take Your MLA to Work Day. This day was created to raise awareness about the benefits of hiring Manitobans with disabilities and to illustrate the employment and career possibilities out there for everyone. I had the privilege of visiting the workplace of Jeff Lamoureux, who joins us here today in the gallery. Jeff has been employed at Mercedes-Benz on McGilvery for the last 2 years. I was honored to spend time with Jeff and his coworkers where he showcased some of his skills. The day ended with a friendly car wash competition where Jeff dominated me in washing the cars. Jeff's journey is a testament to the incredible opportunities provided by DASH, a remarkable organization committed to empowering individuals with disabilities, located right on the border of my riding of Fort White and the member from Fort Garry. One of their key initiatives is Dash Works, which is dedicated to helping graduates find meaningful employment. Currently, 11 individuals are employed, and an additional 32 students are actively engaged in the program, preparing for future employment. Dash has cultivated impressive partnerships with 18 companies, including Mercedes-Benz, Almar Limited, Leila Pharmacy, Midtown Ford, to just name a few. These partnerships not only create job opportunities, but also foster a culture of inclusion and diversity in the workplace. If you have a business or an opportunity, please reach out to Dash today. This summer, Dash celebrated its 50th anniversary, a remarkable milestone, with approximately 650 employees across 58 homes and multiple day program facilities. Jeff and a few of the incredible employees from Dash are here today. I would like to recognize Karen Fonseth, Nadine Haverstock, Jordan Crouch, Dorothy Ross, Richard Kowalchuk, Kim Lavila, and Lothar Levenko. Honorable Speaker, I ask that all my colleagues rise today and recognize the great work of Jeff and all of those at Dash.
The honourable member for Waverley.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today, on behalf of my colleague from Kirkfield Park, I'd like to honor the Rolling Barrage. The Rolling Barrage is a group of courageous individuals who ride their motorcycles from coast to coast every year to raise awareness for veterans, active duty military, and frontline first responders who suffer from and are survivors of PTSD, as well as other mental health injuries. Embarking on their first ride in 2017, the Rolling Barrage aims to break down stigma surrounding PTSD while fundraising for programs and organizations that support veterans, active duty military, and first responders. The event highlights that not all wounds are visible, creating a safe, open, and welcoming space for all. This is why these folks and the work that they do are so important. The Rolling Barrage has seen tremendous growth in the motorcycle ride's participation in recent years, with an average of 400 to 500 participants. In 2023, there were over 40 full pull riders, which means that they successfully completed the entire coast-to-coast ride. I had the opportunity to sit with them a few months ago back at Anavet's 283 in Kirkfield Park, and I was struck by how organized and uplifting they are. They had such a positive impact on supporting veterans, active duty military, and first responders, as well as combating mental health stigma. And I am looking forward to their annual ride next summer in 2025. Please join me in celebrating and thanking Mark, Leona, and Mike from the Rolling Barrage, who are here in the gallery with us today, for their remarkable and fearless mental health advocacy work.
Before moving on to question period, I have some guests in the gallery I'd like to introduce. Very first guest is none other than our clerk Rick Yarish's daughter, Emma Carey, who is joining us with Dash today. And I would like to draw attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us from Dash, Karen Fonseth, Dorothy Ross, Jordan Crouch, Nadine Haverstock, Richard Koala, Chuck Dwight Woods, Jeff Lamoureux, Kim Lavala, and Olha Levenko, who are guests of the honorable member for Fort White. Please join me in welcoming them all to the chamber today. Further, I would like to draw the attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today from Headingley Senior Services and the Charleswood Active Living Center, Margot Price, Christy Todd, Sherry Mooney, Daniel Graham, Mary McCormick, Janice Hamilton, Diana Simpson, Maxine Bryan, who are guests of the honorable member for Roblin. On behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you here today. Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And Honourable Speaker, yesterday during question period, the Premier himself brought up Wikipedia. And then just in the rebuttal to what he put on the record in Wikipedia, I started talking about the fact that the Premier himself will actually have to add onto his Wikipedia page. He's the first ever Premier that is going to be charged, or that was charged, with intimate partner violence. And I don't think that the record of this Premier, he should be throwing any stones at any members on this side of the House, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, yet again, I'm hearing the NDP backbench Broadway bullies are standing up and they are bullying people across the way and heckling, Honourable Speaker. So obviously yesterday, Honourable Speaker, they knew about his Wikipedia page. I didn't know about it. He brought it up. Honourable Speaker, I'll get to my first question in a few seconds. Thanks, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, last fall, Manitobans sent a clear message to members on that side of the House, including the Leader of the Opposition, that hateful, divisive rhetoric had no place in Manitoba. And not only did they send that message by the way they voted, they have shown loudly and clearly that they stand behind a government and a Premier that puts Manitobans first, the most popular Premier in Canada.
Right.
I might add. Honourable Speaker, on this side of the House, we are focused on Manitobans making their health care stronger, making sure that life is more affordable, and their schools have the supports and resources that they need.
Great job.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
This week, I asked the Premier, after a year of cutting projects and priorities, what would he cut next? The Premier didn't answer. Not in QP, not in estimates. So I asked the Premier today, can he update the House on the Lake St. Martin Outlet Channels project?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, for the past year, our government has been focused on Manitobans, on a message of one Manitoba, led by a Premier who has shown day in and day out that putting Manitobans first and committing to working together and bringing people together is what gets things done. We've made advancements in healthcare, 873 net new healthcare workers. We've made life more affordable by cutting the gas tax. And for the first time in Manitoba's history, all kids get to go to school and know that they can focus on education and not worry about being hungry. On this side of the House, led by our great Premier, we're making things better across this province for all Manitobans.
You're here.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
Once again, Honourable Speaker, I didn't hear an answer from this Premier, Honourable Speaker, on such an important topic. The Lake St. Martin Outlet Channels project, not long ago in this very chamber, the Premier, the now Premier himself, as opposition leader, said, and I quote, "It is a very important project for people across Manitoba. For many people across Manitoba, folks who live upstream, people who live in the Interlake, folks who were impacted, communities who are all along both sides of Lake Manitoba, downstream on the other side of the Fairfoot Dam. You have First Nations communities in the area, you have ranchers and other property owners, many of whom are raising the alarm." Does the Premier have an update on his cut to what he called a very important project for all Manitobans today, Honourable Speaker?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, I do think that the Leader of the Opposition has done Manitobans a great service today in continuing to show them why they made the decision a year ago to elect this NDP government to this side of the House to represent them and work on their behalf. Honourable Speaker, our government is doing what the previous government failed to do: consult with communities. While members on that side of the House spend time disrespecting First Nations communities, refusing to engage, on this side of the House, our ministers are doing an excellent job being in community, engaging in conversation and consultation, and doing the work that for 7.5 years wasn't done under Brian Pallister or the failed Stephenson government. We're focused on bringing Manitobans together and getting things done on their behalf.
Outstanding.
The Honourable Deputy House Leader on a new question. The Honourable Official House Leader.
Honourable Speaker, is it
The
my
Leader
turn
of the
yet?
Opposition, I'm
Is it my
sorry.
turn? Is my camera, is my mic on? It is on. Great. Honourable Speaker, once again, crickets from this Premier, Honourable Speaker. The Premier has been exposed yet again. Doesn't seem to know what his ministers are doing on that side of the chamber, Honourable Speaker. His minister, even though it's accordingly to the Premier, the former Leader of the Opposition, very important project by his own admission, now that he's Premier, he gets personally involved by cutting the project. Wow. He doesn't care about the sunk costs from 2 levels of government. He doesn't care about the years and years of consultation. The Premier doesn't care about Manitobans who he said needed the project when he was in opposition. They said anything to get elected, and now they'll say anything to keep the power. But they will never, ever put Manitobans first. No. Honourable Speaker, will the Premier stand in his place, apologize to Manitobans who he has misled when he personally advocated for the Channels project?
Member's time is expired. The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Honourable Speaker, honestly, there's not a whole lot that I need to say on this. The PC's failed record speaks for itself. They spent 7.5 years refusing to consult, refusing to engage, and it seemed like they were only committed to damaging and destroying relationships across this province. They damaged relationships with communities in healthcare, and affordability, and education. Wherever they went, they created damage, and more damage. On this side of the House, we are focused on not only repairing those relationships, but building them up to a place where we continue to make our province better for all Manitobans. So we'll take no lessons from that Leader of the Opposition or a single member on that side of the House.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, the people of the Interlake have seen enough flooding. 2011, 2014, and many other years reaching back all the way back to the 1970s. When housing was wiped out, infrastructure was destroyed, some Manitobans lost everything and remained displaced. The Premier has a bad habit of making everything political, even when we discuss very important concerns and topics. And from opposition, the Premier pretty much said he'd be personally involved in getting it done, if elected. So now that this is absolutely false and the project's been cut by this Premier and his NDP minister, I'll be clear for Manitobans. The NDP Premier is personally responsible for the lack of progress on flood mitigation in the Interlake. The NDP Premier is personally responsible for any and all future flooding, destruction and displacement. Honourable Speaker, given that he was involved in making the cut, will you stand up and apologize to Manitobans for misleading them, not only
Member's time
Manitobans, but
has
the people in
expired.
Israel?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is rich.
Order, please.
A rich question coming.
Order, please. I would ask members of the opposition bench to curtail their comments. The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's very rich coming from the members opposite, who in 7.5 years made no progress on the Channels project as it was outlined. In fact, they did so much damage to the possibility of that project by ignoring First Nations that were involved, by refusing to meet with them. Every nation I've met with has told me about the closed doors and their inability to weigh in on the impact of the proposed channel project in their community. I am so proud of the work that our department and our government is doing on building those relationships and working in partnership with First Nations on flood mitigation.
The Honourable Member for Roblin.
After months of advocacy and debate, the NDP have now twice denied leave to take Bill 221 to committee, despite claiming to support lowering the breast cancer screening age. Since they've already announced that they're following the timeline outlined in our bill, why are they so afraid to legislate their commitment and bring the bill to committee? And why are they unwilling to be fully transparent on their progress with Manitoba women?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. To be clear, we are following the progress that has been identified by experts in this province, by women across this province, and those who need the care, who have been meeting with our government from very early on in our administration to move this in a better direction. These are the very same people who have sat in my office and shared with me how devastated they were when the previous Heather Stephenson administration closed the Mature Women's Health Centre. These are the same people who have sat in my office and shared with me the damage done to the healthcare system, specifically around women's health, by the previous PC government. We are taking steps to not only strengthen breast health care in this province, but all health care for women across Manitoba.
Order, please. The member for Portage La Prairie will come to order. The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Honourable Speaker, apparently it is slim pickings across the way for the Premier to hand out plums to his favourite backbench MLAs. The Premier has so little faith in his backbench MLAs that he has been forced to place all the additional legislative responsibilities to one lone MLA, the MLA for Riel. So on top of his $106,000 salary, he receives $7,500 as caucus chair, $5,200 as LA to Environment and Climate Change, and now another $5,200 as legislative assistant to education and early childhood learning. Is the Premier that smitten with the MLA for Riel, or that horrified?
The member's time has expired. The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Weirdest question of the season.
Honourable Speaker, on this side of the House, we understand that all our members have capacity, have talent, and have commitment to Manitobans. I want to thank the member opposite for highlighting our great member who represents Riel and the great work that he's doing. I'll remind that member that that is exactly what happens when folks go out and serve their communities. They actually flip seats and they end up in an NDP government. I want to remind that member that we saw the same thing happen not that long ago in Tuxedo. And we've got to remember on this side of the House.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Selkirk.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Unfortunately for the Minister of Finance, Manitobans see through him. As the Brandon Sun has written, quote, "Don't swallow the spin. It's obvious that the $1.97 billion deficit is an arbitrary figure inflated by our NDP government to make them look good and the Tories look bad," end quote. I table for the document, Salah spins a distorted financial statement.
Wow.
Which begs the question, why is this minister intentionally misattributing figures for partisan purposes?
Here, here.
Order, please. I just remind members not to use members' names, but to use their ministerial title or their constituency name. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, look, Manitobans know they can't trust the PCs. They saw that over the last 7.5 years, and on July 28th, when they presented a fiscal update to Manitobans before the last election, they provided a very distorted perspective on our financial situation. They hid the fact that they were going to be way off in their hydro budget. They hid the fact that they weren't going to hit their tax revenue budget. They hid the fact that they had hundreds of millions of dollars of unplanned expenditures, all in a desperate bid to try to stay elected. That's their record. Our record is focused on transparency, accountability. We're committed to delivering on our balanced budget commitment while we ensure we deliver on better affordability, better health care and education. That's why Manitobans sent us there. That was paper route.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
I had a paper route.
Order. The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Last night, the NDP started to drain the St. Malo Lake. The first time this has occurred in decades, yet they didn't start to inform the property owners and residents until this morning.
Wow.
I tabled that letter.
Wow.
Some residents who were lucky enough to see the letter this morning were advised to remove their docks and boats as soon as possible, while at the same time saying access to boating will be limited for safety reasons.
Wow.
When residents asked for drainage for sediment control, it was out of the question. So why is it that the infrastructure minister is now blindsiding them with no notice and no consultation?
Wow. Wow.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And I really want to take a moment to thank my critic, because it's the first time this entire fall session that he's shown any remote interest in infrastructure here in this chamber. So I'm really grateful for having a question, and I want to assure the member opposite and all Manitobans that our department seeks to communicate directly with folks affected by decisions made by our department, and we will continue to do so.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today, Make Poverty History launched their campaign for a livable basic benefit. According to recent census data, more than 100,000 Manitobans are living below the poverty line, and almost 1 in 5 are experiencing food insecurity. Does this government support the transformation of the EIA system into a livable basic benefit?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Honourable Speaker, I was really pleased just a mere hour and a half ago to bring greetings and meet with folks just in the rotunda here with Make Poverty History on this really important day and at the launch of their campaign. I shared at that lunch hour that our government takes eradicating poverty incredibly serious. And right now we're in the process of the development of a new poverty reduction strategy. And so our team has been working on that, and we are in every part of the province right now doing consultation and engagement, and we're hearing from folks with lived experiences, with those stakeholders that are on the front lines, and with those people that are truly the experts on how we can work together to eradicate poverty.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The current single individual's basic needs allowance from EIA is only $274 a month. This number must cover all of their basic needs. This includes groceries, clothing, non-prescribed medications, toiletries, laundry, transportation, phone services, and so forth. Does this government feel that $9 a day is an adequate amount of money to cover the cost of basic needs for Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. One of the first things that we did when assuming government was we instituted a universally accessible nutrition program for schools in Manitoba so that we're ensuring that children have access to food and nutrition that they need and that they can better concentrate on education. The other thing that we did that we just announced, our health minister announced, is a free birth control program, which is going to be transformative in the lives of Manitobans. The other thing that we did that I was really proud to stand and introduce was we doubled the prenatal benefit. All of these programs that we've instituted and that we've enhanced go towards ensuring that Manitobans have the supports they need.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Make Poverty History also shares that 1 in 10 Manitobans are in need of housing. Now, there are approximately 2,000 Manitoba housing units that are currently vacant, in need of repair, and under-maintained. Will this government commit to using the federal funds they received to repair these units so Manitobans will have their housing needs met by this winter?
The Order. The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. And we both want to get up because we both want to speak about this because there's so much to say about housing. Our government is doing such a great job. Unlike members opposite who cut, slashed, sold off, we are not taking that approach. We are investing, we are building, we are working with frontline services. We've committed to 350 more social housing units. We are maintaining more than 3,000 units. We've in fact housed more than 1,200 folks in this year alone since November. 725 of those are actually in fact in our own Manitoba housing units. The former government was boarding up those units. We are not. We are fixing them up.
The Honourable Member for Waverley.
Honourable Speaker, the Heather Stephenson PCs systematically dismantled our province's healthcare system, and this was felt all over Manitoba. One area that was deeply affected, and I know this firsthand, was South Winnipeg. Cuts to services and staff, closures, hour reductions, they all had significant negative impacts on South Winnipeg. But our government has turned that ship around. Can the Minister please share with the Chamber our very exciting plan to bring health care back to the families of South Winnipeg?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I thank my great colleague for Waverley for that important question. After years of cuts by the PCs to services in South Winnipeg, our government is bringing them back. We're building the Victoria ER, increasing access to emergency services in the South. We're reopening the Mature Women's Health Centre, a key component to improving health care for women across this province. And we're working with the Bruce and Ann Oak Foundation to build the Ann Oak Recovery Centre, which will help women and their families who are struggling with addiction. All of these projects are located in South Winnipeg. They provide fulsome and interconnected health services. We are fixing healthcare in South Winnipeg, and we're fixing healthcare right across Manitoba.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness has yet to answer Swan River Mayor Lance Jacobson on the open invitation. And to quote him again, quote, "I would invite any politician pushing harm reduction as a solution to come and spend the day in Swan River and maybe even the night so that they can see it for themselves," end quote. Does this minister intend on taking him up on this offer, or is the lived experience of municipal leaders not something that she is interested in?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, and I don't know if that member has been in contact with Mayor Jacobson and Swan Valley, but we've been working closely and collaboratively with them. We actually have a plan, and we've been working on a solution. Unlike members opposite, we don't work in divisiveness. We work collaboratively, and we are working with frontline organizations, and we are not going to take their approach where it was us and them. We are working on solutions together, and that's what Manitobans sent us here to do. And we are working for Manitobans, with Manitobans, along with municipalities, something members opposite never did. We are taking a harm reduction approach, and that includes working to support Manitobans. So, members opposite should get on board.
The Honourable Member for Borderland.
It's been a month since Manitobans learned that as many as 8,500 asylum seekers may soon be relocated to Manitoba from Ontario and Quebec. The Premier has failed to be transparent and provide Manitobans with details of his agreement with the Trudeau government. Can he tell this House today how many migrants have been moved to Manitoba to date?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister for Labour and Immigration.
Honourable Speaker, the members opposite frankly don't know what they're talking about, but that's not really a surprise. Yes, asylum seekers have been coming to Manitoba, but there is no current plan regarding moving any asylum claimants here for voluntary relocation. There is no plan to do this at this time. Talks are ongoing. There is a working group federally for other provinces, including ours, to come up with a coherent plan across Canada. At this point, members opposite, this is just pure conjecture at this point in what they're talking about, and this is not helping the conversation about responsible immigration in this country.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Tuxedo.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Earlier this month, Tuxedo got some great news. The Premier, Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness, and I got together with Tuxedo families, and especially those amazing young people who advocated for the needs in their community, to announce a new play structure is going to be built. Can the Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness please share how this fantastic project will help bring families in Tuxedo together and get kids active?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague for that question. I was proud to announce that our government is building a brand new play structure at the Edgeland Manitoba Housing Complex. It's an exciting project that members opposite should be excited about as well, that will be bringing Tuxedo families together to play, relax, and connect in their own backyard, and they're heckling this. This play structure will be an accessible space that is open to all, and it will incorporate Indigenous elements that reflect Manitoba's rich history. We look forward to consulting with residents to see what they envision for this project, especially with the kids who will play on it next summer. For years, Heather Stephenson and members opposite treated Manitoba housing as an afterthought. They cut
Member's time has expired.
We're gonna...
The Honourable Member for Roblin.
On Tuesday during estimates, the Minister of Health once again refused to provide details about contracts with public and private providers to expand surgical capacity in Manitoba. Back in April, they promised transparency on which contracts were renewed, but no specifics have been shared to date. The Surgical and Diagnostic Wait Time Tracker, which I'll table, reveals a significant drop in cataract surgeries at Western Surgery Centre, a key contract expansion under the DSRTF. Under the previous PC government, over 2,000 cataract surgeries were performed at Western in the first 6 months of 2023. But during the same period in 2024, only 945 were completed. Will the NDP finally be transparent about the contracts they've cancelled and how their cuts to surgical capacity have been
Member's time is expired. The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And I want to thank the folks at Western for being great partners with our government and making sure that we take an approach to health care that allows for Manitobans to get access in their own province. The member opposite has a lot to answer for to Manitobans who were forced to leave the country to get essential basic access to health care for years. Member opposite ran under a PC banner that was committed to privatizing health care, closing emergency room, cutting the front lines, firing health care workers, and sending Manitobans out of the country for basic health care. On this side of the House, we're investing in Manitoba to make health care stronger for all Manitobans.
Right on.
The Honourable Member for Dawson Trail.
Enrollment is surging in the Seine River School Division, and hallway education is rampant across Manitoba. The St. Adolphe School is bursting at the seams. I table a quote from the superintendent who warns it won't be long until we have other schools that are full as well. Will the minister finally be transparent about the steps being taken to tackle overcrowding in Manitoba schools, or is the reality is there is no plan?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for the question. Simply put, we are building schools. We do have a plan. Very proud of our capital 5-year plan on schools. Unlike the previous government, whose plan was written on the back of a napkin, they made announcements that they knew they could never complete on. And in fact, the member from Spruce Woods agrees and has admitted, and I'm going to quote from this morning's Winnipeg Free Press, money did not need to be set aside last year because the school contract was not set. So they get up in this House and they pretend as if they had a plan. They're disingenuous. Manitobans know this. Manitobans voted for change. Manitobans voted for a government that understands education and is going to build real schools with real dollars.
The Honourable Member for Agassiz.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Earlier
Order,
this year,
please. The member for Spruce Woods will come to order. Because I've noticed today, in particular, he seems to be very voracious in his heckling, so that needs to stop. The Honourable Member for Agassiz.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Earlier this year, the Minister of Municipal Relations was forced to realize the massive mistake that his government made in cutting Green Team funding. Manitobans had to pack this gallery and demand to be heard by this government. Will the minister commit to reinstating the Green Team funding fully for next year?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal and Northern Relations.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And we continue to invest in municipalities all across the province. $42 million in our new Manitoba Grow program, $12.5 million from the ground up, 2% to the funding model. What's not in there, Honourable Speaker, is $3,800 for intimacy coach that they time and time again. Why don't they go and ask for that intimacy coach to refund that money rather than asking the people of Manitoba to refund that campaign expense?
Order. The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods.
Speaker, as much as I'd love to respond to the Minister for Education's falsehoods, my question is to the Minister of Addictions, Housing and Homelessness, who on August 2nd personally stopped processing requests for the Canada-Manitoba Housing Benefit, threatening almost 400 Manitobans with loss of shelter. The stop wasn't communicated to applicants and organizations until August 30th, and she didn't even bother to tell her Premier, who admitted that he found out on the radio. My question is simple. Was the minister's unwillingness to tell her boss because she thought she could hide it from him, or because she feared his reaction?
Order, please. I would caution members that using terms such as falsehoods has been raised as an issue in this House before, and caution used to require members to quit using such terms. So I would remind members again to watch the language they're using in this chamber. The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. Let's talk about the Tory record, or the PC record on housing. They cut, they slashed, they sold. That's something our government isn't going to do. We committed to investing $116 million in housing. We are building, we are maintaining, we are actually working with nonprofits, something the former PC Stephenson government never did. They, in fact, were okay with people living in bus shelters. They were okay with selling off housing. In one transaction, over 350 units that, in fact, made people homeless. People shared with me they had to go live in encampments. Honourable Speaker, and they were okay with that. We're not.
Time has expired. The honourable member for Fort White. Order, please. Everybody come to order. The honourable member for Fort White.
Honourable Speaker, 3 weeks ago, this government announced the use of public-private partnerships, or P3s, for a downtown health tower. 1 week ago, they announced the use of P3s for affordable housing. Yet today, they are rejecting P3s for much-needed schools. Why does this NDP government and the Minister of Education welcome the private sector to healthcare and affordable housing, but reject it for education and much-needed schools in this province?
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The answer is simple. We want Manitobans to own those public resources. Manitobans should benefit from public dollars. That's our legacy. What is the legacy on the other side of the aisle, Honourable Speaker? Their legacy is a legacy of cuts, chaos, and apparently car rentals. So the question from the member from Fort White, and I'm very proud of our capital school plan. We're going to build schools in the right way, in a way that benefits Manitobans for decades to come.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Last spring, both the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and the Minister of Natural Resources told this House they were committed to stopping the spread of zebra mussels from Clear Lake. Since then, the situation in Clear Lake has only gotten worse. Now the Assiniboine River Basin from Riding Mountain National Park to downtown Winnipeg is at serious risk of infestation. I have urged both ministers to increase water testing downstream and to share the results with the public. To date, Manitobans have not seen or heard anything publicly on this issue. Will the ministers commit today to publicly releasing the results of downstream water testing? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development, Investment, Trade and Natural Resources.
Honourable Speaker, I'm very happy to be standing up here and answering the question on behalf of our government in regards to a very important crown jewel in Manitoba, Clear Lake, that a lot of us take very seriously and hold dear to our hearts. I know Manitobans love visiting that space. Now, I think we're all disappointed to learn about the discovery of zebra mussels in Clear Lake, and that's why we've been consistently advocating for the federal government for them to manage their lake in the provincial park. Now, we've been advocating on behalf of business owners. We as a province have been doing our responsibility of testing downstream. Additionally, we've launched the first ever provincial strategy for aquatic invasive species and increased our budget by 45% to make sure that we're doing our part to fight against all aquatic invasive species across Manitoba.
The honourable member for Selkirk.
Honourable Speaker, the Minister for Advanced Education promised to keep schools whole. Yet today, the University of Manitoba has hiked tuition 5.5% to cover their losses. I table the document today. I have asked the Minister repeatedly to ensure funding is in place to protect the future of students and their cost to education. I've asked her to be serious in question period, but instead she focused on the past. The minister has failed our schools, failed our students, and failed her duties to live up to her word. Will she stand up today and apologize for her failures, or will she do the same as she did Tuesday and say it's just, quote, best to sit down?
Wow! The Honourable Minister for Advanced Education and Training.
Honourable Speaker, it's a pleasure to stand up in the House today to correct the member opposite. So I just want to take everyone on a walk down memory lane here and remind them that under the Pallister and Stephenson government, 18% was cut from post-secondary institutions. This included 5% to University of Manitoba, 4% to University of Winnipeg, 4% to Brandon University, 7% to University College of the North, and all post-secondaries in Manitoba by 5%. The member opposite wants to run from his party's record? Sorry. This is what you signed up for. You ran under their banner, you put up their signs, you defended the parental rights nonsense, and now you have to be accountable for the
Member's time has expired, and I would remind all members to direct their comments through the chair. The Honourable Member for Portage La Prairie.
Honourable Speaker, this is about accountability. The minister hoards information and silences experts. I table an email from Dr. Sikora, the head of diagnostic services, that shows only the minister's own office was impeding such meetings. If the minister won't attend our town hall, will they release these experts to attend and answer residents' questions, or is the minister insisting on silencing the experts?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, over the past year, I've had the absolute honour and privilege of serving Manitobans in the capacity of Minister of Health. And what I've heard consistently from folks on the front lines and experts is that for 7.5 years, they had the Heather Stephenson government, Brian Pallister, leader of the opposition, members opposite, who turned their backs on the very folks in this province who guide us with their expertise in healthcare. On this side of the House, we work with our experts as partners. We listen to the front lines and make investments to make healthcare better based on what they have to say. We are going to continue to do the work that sees more healthcare workers on the front lines, more capacity in our system, and more Manitobans accessing care close to home, something they didn't have for 7.5 years under that failed
time has expired. The time for oral questions has expired, and I just have a brief statement for the House that I've noticed in the last couple of days at least, that not just the level of heckling, but the type of heckling has become meaner and nastier. And I hope I'm wrong in this, but it seems like it's directed to a certain group more so than others. I hope that is not the case, and I would ask all members to stop and think about heckling. I'm not opposed to heckling, but respect for each other has to be important in this place. We need to set the example for others, and hate-filled comments are not going to set that example. So please, while you're away on constituency week this week, think about your actions, your words, and make sure that you understand that those are important for all Manitobans. Petitions. Grievances. Orders of the day, government business. Order. Orders of the day, government business, the government House Leader, the official government House Leader.
Could you please resume debate or resume Committee of Supply?
We will now resolve into Committee of Supply. Deputy Speaker, please take the chair. Deputy Speaker, please take the chair. Deputy Speaker, please take the chair.
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates of Executive Council. At this time, we invite Ministerial and Opposition staff to enter the chamber, and we ask the members to please introduce their staff in attendance. The Honourable First Minister.
Mr. Chair, I present to you Sarah Thiele, Clerk of the Executive Council, Mark Rosner, my Chief of Staff.
Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Braden Jones, Chief of Staff, has joined me this afternoon.
As previously stated, in accordance with Sub-Rule 78, Bracket 16, during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. So if the Premier can update the House on the Lake St. Martin Outlet Channels project.
The Honourable First Minister.
The Channels project is a piece of flood mitigation infrastructure that's planned to move water from Lake Manitoba through the Interlake, and then of course eventually via Lake St. Martin towards Lake Winnipeg. This was often described as Brian Pallister's legacy project, even though nothing ever really got done through 2 terms of PC misadventures in government, shall we say. It's clear that there's a need for flood mitigation in the Interlake, in this region in particular. Speaking with civil servants, it's been described to me that several of the communities in, I guess, the northern part of the Interlake are to be the communities that benefit the most from this piece of flood fighting infrastructure. So this would include First Nations like Dauphin River, Little Saskatchewan, Lake St. Martin, Penematang, and small towns like, you know, Gibsonville and I guess St. Martin and others in the area throughout the Interlake. But of course it serves a broader region of the province. There are many ranchers and cottagers and First Nations people all around the shores of Lake Manitoba who would stand to benefit from this. And of course, if we are to think of the entirety of the flood control structures and diversions and floodways around the province that help us to move water around during flood seasons and otherwise, especially within the southern half of the province, if you will, this could be seen to be an important province-wide priority, insofar as there is basically one watershed that moves water along the Souris from the Shellmouth Dam to the Assiniboine, through the Portage Diversion into Lake Manitoba, currently via the Fairford Dam into Lakes Penemuta and St. Martin, as well as the Fairford River, then eventually on to the Dauphin River and Lake Winnipeg. Anyway, I can tell you that the civil service, working with engineers and subcontractors, examined several different alternatives for ways to control the water level on Lake Manitoba and subsequently the water levels in these downstream rivers and bodies of water that I'm describing here. This included different approaches to moving water out of Lake Manitoba, but it also included various scenarios in which water would be prevented from entering Lake Manitoba in the first place. So for instance, like in the Waterhen, Skowhenan region, looking at potentially diverting water north from there to Cedar Lake as one example, Winnipegosis to Cedar Lake. And that's just one particular scenario. There were a ton of various scenarios. All of them were examined in great detail, both for the hydrology, potential cost benefit implications, as well as, I guess, the net effect on regulating water within both Lake Manitoba and, again, some of those downstream lakes. These analyses were conducted while the PCs were in power, primarily during Brian Pallister's time in office. And in spite of the expense and the horsepower that was deployed in these directions, nothing got done. You could have built something within 7.5 years, but not if you're the PCs. And so when we entered office, we entered a very challenging state of affairs where the provincial government under the PCs had broken trust and broken relationships with a lot of communities in the region who, as I said, are supposed to benefit from this project. And as a result, ever since, we've been trying to clean up the PC mess, much as we are doing in healthcare and public safety.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
So I know that the Premier failed to answer any of the questions earlier today on this topic. I'd like to know when he sat as Leader of Opposition, he said how very important this project was and how it needed to be expedited. He also said that that when he would get elected, if elected, he said, that he would be personally involved in the project and he would get it done. We all know that this is an important project. We know that the previous NDP government had a flood in 2011, 2014, and there was floods all the way, reaching all the way back to the 1970s. And I know that his multiple staff that he has hired in his just over 1 year of tenure and had increased the amount of staff, that he had staff out during the scrum and had staff listening to question period, so hopefully he knows these answers. We know that many communities have been affected for decades. We know that housing has been wiped out, Honorable Chairperson. We know that infrastructure has been destroyed. We know that there's Manitobans that have absolutely lost everything, and at times now are still displaced. Yet the Premier and his cabinet minister have canceled the project. So can he tell the House? Can he tell Manitobans? Can he tell the people directly affected by his decision when he's going to start it again? Or what is his timeline plan?
The Honourable First Minister.
Member is using very irresponsible language. It's irresponsible to try to play on the fears of people affected by flooding in the past in order to try to get your name in the bottom third of a news article today. So the only thing our government is doing is trying to save the Channels project from the oblivion that it was left in by the PCs. They had 2 terms in office to try and show progress. I believe the progress that's been shown is perhaps a road, but as far as flood infrastructure, that will not accomplish much in that part of the Interlake. I've spoken extensively with people in the region. Actually was a news reporter during the flood of 2011 and spent a lot of time speaking to people in the area around St. Laurent, Twin Lakes Beach, and seeing the impacts there. Very damaging. Homes flooded, knocked off their foundations by wave action on Lake Manitoba. The impact of ice being thrown up onto shore. We saw a similar thing near Delta in Portage Prairie area, I guess further south and to the west. So it's clearly needed. There was an attempt to cast some aspersions there, I believe, in the form of saying I've committed to being personally involved and that we'll get it done. And I'd like to take this opportunity to confirm I am personally involved and we will get it done. Again, the member for Springfield was shot, the member for Lac du Bonnet, Brian Pallister, Heather Stephenson, they were all personally involved for many, many years. And has 1 liter of water been moved through the channels? 1 milliliter? No. So now, after falling down on what was to be Brian Pallister's legacy project, not getting it built, I guess there's a bit of desire to try and revive an issue that they had the ability to move forward. The reason why they were not able to do so, I think, has to do with a combination of their own incompetence and inability to manage large-scale, long-term projects, but also the inability to cultivate meaningful relationships with folks who need to be on site in order for projects to move forward. If you're looking for an example, I can recall a few summers ago visiting a group of families in the Interlake alongside the MLA for Concordia, who's now the Attorney General. And this was a mix of ranchers and landowners and households whose land was to be expropriated at that stage, using that verbiage and tense, and whose homes would either be moved or that they would have to relocate. And just simple communication, simple showing of respect and talking to these folks was not really forthcoming from the PC administration of the day. And so as opposition, I was happy to be there and to build relationships and to try and advocate for folks to get more fair dealing done. And it's the same sort of approach that we're working on today. It's communities in the Interlake, it's the federal government, there's a number of First Nations governments that all need to be worked with in a comprehensive fashion. We know St. Laurent is a Métis community as well. So there's Manitoba Métis Federation and municipal leaders. In all, we're working hard to reset the relationship. And after years of mistrust sown by the inactions and failures of the PC government, I can report that we are taking significant steps to ensure the viability of this project by ensuring that everyone's on board with the direction that we're setting.
Before we move on to the next question, I will just direct all honorable members to the gallery. We have joining us 6 guests from the Secrétariat aux Affaires Francophones. Welcome to the Committee of Supply. The Honorable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thanks, thanks, Honorable Chairperson, and the Premier sits in his chair and again casts stones in glass houses from which he's throwing them. It was the Premier, back when he was the opposition leader, that said things on how important this project was, and that if he got elected, he would get it done. But it's his record that is going to show that he's actually canceled it. And I'm not sure if now, maybe, because we've seen this from this Premier, maybe, and this is sort of his opportunity, if he chooses to take it, maybe this is one more example of him not really knowing what his minister has done. I mean, we've seen that from various other MLAs and ministers within his government that have acted and done things that the Premier now wants to either see reversed or he didn't know anything about. In estimates, in October of 2022, this now Premier, then Leader of the Opposition, in regards to the Lake Manitoba project, Mr. Chair, does the Premier have something to say? Does the Premier have something to say? There's always lots being said, Honorable Chairperson, when the microphones are off. So does he have something to share with the committee? Now, before I finish my question and give him the 5 minutes that he's going to waste on the record, I am just going to repeat that he said, and I quote, "Why can't the government move things along more quickly? Question mark. This project," I quote, "this project is important enough and urgent enough given the flooding situation in Manitoba." He continues to say, and I quote, he's calling for a more substantive intervention to expedite the approvals process. And he references the floods of 2011-14 and previous other floods. So today, he talks about fear. Well, the fact is him and his minister are the ones that canceled this project. And to say that for him to say that there were no consultations, there was no meetings, is totally disingenuous. And once again, maybe he should put it on the record and apologize again for misleading Manitobans. He continues to flip-flop. When he was in opposition, this was an important project. Now that he's in government, he's cutting it. It's unfortunate, and it's again a sign of behavior from this premier that is not becoming of a premier. So I've put some questions on the record there, Honorable Chairperson. And again, timeline. So then I guess he's going to get this project done in a year, 2 years, 3 years? What is it? Say it on the record. What's your plan? You had 7.5 years being in opposition, and you come into government with no plan. What's the plan? What's the timeline? When are you getting it done, Mr. Premier?
Just a reminder that comment should be directed through the chair. The Honorable First Minister.
Well, you know, if 7.5 years go by and 2 successive, knock on wood, NDP administrations have not built the channels, then we'll entertain questions from the members opposite. But right now, we're certainly proceeding much more quickly than the PCs did. I want to remind the member opposite that Brian Pallister committed in 2016 that the Channels project would be built within 2 years. So that was clearly a failure, clearly a broken promise. And I know he won't take the bait because nobody on the opposite side of the aisle can say the 2 names Brian Pallister, even though they haven't won an election. They haven't won an election in 30 years without Brian Pallister. The only one who will say Brian Pallister is a member for Portage la Prairie because he makes the fundraising call to Brian Pallister every year at year end. So I look forward to unveiling the portrait for Brian Pallister in the legislature very soon. We'll invite all the members opposite, see if any of them are going to show. And again, they're very boisterous when it's time to heckle, but when you turn that microphone on, that circle of courage kind of scatters and runs for the hills real quick. The Channels project has not been canceled. To suggest otherwise is irresponsible and is the hallmark of a politician desperate for media coverage. This project was left in such a state of mistrust and limbo that it is taking serious personal intervention from myself and many others from our team to set it on the right track. And so the real shame is that for close to 8 years, the flood risk in this region has been allowed to continue because the PCs could not get the job done. Est-ce qu'on est capable d'utiliser la traduction maintenant dans la Chambre? Je pense que oui. Je voudrais juste dire à tout le monde qui est ici aujourd'hui que oui, le Manitoba, c'est une province bilingue et vous avez toujours le droit d'engager avec votre démocratie dans votre langue maternelle. Et puis, en tant que Premier ministre du Manitoba, je suis toujours fier d'engager avec vous dans votre langue maternelle. Et puis, quand on engage avec ce projet dans cette région du Manitoba, c'est toujours important de se souvenir qu'il y a bien beaucoup de monde à Saint-Laurent qui parle le français, qui parle le michif. Et puis, en tant que le chef pour toute la province, pour ceux qui parlent français, pour ceux qui parlent anglais ou même des autres langues, c'est important pour moi de vous dire que nous sommes toujours engagés dans le projet d'avancer cette Channels. C'était un grand défi qui était nous laissé par les conservateurs. Il y avait 7 ans et demi où ils ont eu la chance de construire ce projet. Ils n'ont presque rien fait. Il y avait des réunions, des rencontres, mais est-ce qu'ils ont construit une pièce d'infrastructure qui nous aidera avec les inondations? Non. Ils n'ont rien fait. La seule chose qu'ils ont avancé, c'était une espèce de défi. dans cette région. Parce que maintenant, un an après l'élection, il y a toujours des grands défis quand on essaie d'engager avec cette question de comment est-ce qu'on pourrait construire les channels dans cette région. Et c'est à cause des fautes des conservateurs. Beaucoup du monde qui ont rien fait ou qui ont nulé à ce projet sont toujours dans le caucus des conservateurs. C'est le membre de Springfield-Richaud, le membre de Lac de Bonnie, c'était l'ancien premier ministre Heather Stephenson et puis Brian Pallister. Ils ont eu la chance pendant beaucoup d'années. Ils n'ont rien fait. Et puis maintenant, ils ont besoin de regarder à leur nom dans le papier, alors ils disent des choses qui sont pas correctes. Mais à moi, la chose qui n'est pas correcte est d'essayer de faire peur à ceux qui habitent dans cette région.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and still no timeline. Still no timeline. The Premier sits there, and I have to commend him on his French. Absolutely great. I understand what he said. I understood what he said, and we'll see when this project. He says it's not canceled. Well, I tell you, Honourable Chairperson, I have heard multiple times, and why he didn't answer this question earlier today, I have no idea, Honourable Chairperson. It's unfortunate that he was unwilling to answer these questions. In regards to the MLA for Wolseley, who the Premier himself is saying that obviously they wanted some publicity in the media, and that's why they brought this up in regards to the canceling or the pausing on the environmental assessment or anything else on this project. I can't answer his question as to why the MLA for Wolseley went out on their own to try to get publicity in the media. But I think it's because they are probably not getting the recognition that they feel they deserve from this Premier. He talks about building relationships. Well, Honourable Chairperson, I know that, earlier this week in estimates, I know he spent some time trying to dodge estimates because it's heating up a little bit. He's being held accountable to some of the things, not only that he's been doing as Premier, but also he's been doing as leader of his party. So we've seen on many occasions, Honourable Chairperson, that when the NDP use the terminology pause, they're going to pause a project. Most times what they're meaning is they're either canceling it or cutting it. He says it's not canceled. So then I've asked, Honourable Speaker, what is the timeline? Is he getting it done in a year, 2 years, 3 years? Or does he have to do some direct award contracts again on some tiger dams? Right? It's interesting, Honourable Chairperson. And I think, Honourable Chairperson, I'm thinking back to estimates there a couple days ago, and there were some serious allegations again brought forward and tidbits of information in estimates that I looked back at the video and not only was I not only amazed, shocked at some of the things that were brought forward by the MLA, the independent member for Fort Garry, but I saw it on your face as well, Honourable Chairperson. And I think there was a lot of shocking information that was brought forward that day. And so I am going to ask the Premier again, what is his timeline to get the project done? Since he said how urgent, and that if he was reelected, again, we've seen time and time again, this Premier say anything to get elected and to try to hold on to power. And again, it's all about photo ops for the Premier because we know he's self-serving. We know that. We've seen evidence of that many times. So what is the timeline? When is the project getting done? And the next question to the Premier is going to be coming from the MLA for Fort Garry, because the Premier has been dodging many questions over the last few days. And so we will get back to questions from myself after the MLA for Fort Garry has a couple questions, after the Premier asks about the timeline that he's going to get the channels done.
The Honourable First Minister.
Thank you. Certainly we'll beat the 7.5 years to do nothing timeline set by the PCs. It's funny that the member opposite said untendered contract and then immediately backed off. The reason why he did that is because actually it was a member for Springfield Richat who was found to have had an untendered contract used to build a road that was supposed to be involved with the site prep for this project. And I recall when Brian Pallister did a scrum on this, and he said, you know, the minister made a mess, talking about now the member for Springfield Richat, and the minister is going to clean it up. And so the member opposite knows not only did the PCs not build the channels project, but on even just the question of doing some site prep and getting things ready, they somehow made a mess. And the member for Springfield Richat was the one left to clean up the mess of his own making. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, it was the people of Manitoba left holding the bag, because again, representations were made, promises were issued. Brian Pallister famously promised in 2016 that it would be done within 2 years. The only thing that had been done by 2018 was this untendered contract regarding a road. So that's unfortunate, but we're doing a lot better than that. One of the exercises that we've been undertaking is to rebuild trust with some of the flood-affected communities in the region. And sometimes these are tough conversations, I'll be frank with you. Nobody gets a free pass on some of these conversations. We have to spend the time, just like anyone else, building a relationship. But we just try to deal with it in a straight-up fashion. Whereas the PCs managed to alienate and aggravate seemingly everyone in the Interlake who is looking for the Channels project to get built, and also alienated and aggravated folks who should rightly have been partners in the construction of the project and should have been buying in, because again, some of these communities are thought to be the biggest potential beneficiaries of this project when it gets built. But then again, after causing all that discord and misharmony and lack of trust, nothing got done. I would draw your attention to the mill in Minitonas, Louisiana Pacific Mill. There's a situation there where you got a lot of hard-working Manitobans who show up in hard hats each day and put in the work. You got many hundreds of others of people who are in the bush swinging a chainsaw, providing the raw material for the mill. You have land users and rights holders and Indigenous communities in the region. And whereas the PCs managed to bring the situation there to the precipice again of all sorts of potential challenges in the region, we came into office, we sat down with workers, with business, with Indigenous governments, and we were able to arrive at a deal. And it was a positive deal that the PCs had several years to be able to try and make happen, but they didn't. The reason why I'm pointing in that direction is, again, to say that these things are not easy. They don't happen overnight, but they do happen to move in a more positive direction when you show up and engage in good faith. And so I offer that as a rough parallel for the Channels project. And similar to what we were able to do in arriving at a deal that the PCs couldn't, it's my hope and it's my intent that we'll be able to do something similar with the Channels project. Meaning, we're putting in the work now, we're putting in the efforts, we're bringing people together in a way that hasn't happened up to now, but should have been happening all along, with the eyes of building this flood fighting infrastructure.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Chairperson, I am conceding the floor to the member for Fort Garry till 4 o'clock.
The Honourable Member for Fort Garry.
Thank you. On Tuesday, the Premier told this committee that it was the families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron who convinced him to search the landfill. That conversation happened, according to him, late November or early December. They were remarking on a comment that was out in the media that the search was not feasible. The Premier quoted Ms. Harris saying, "Are our lives not feasible?" And apparently that was the tipping point that the Premier began to see the victims' families in a humanized way for the first time. And that apparently changed his opinion. But it's very clear from the record that he was opposed to the landfill search prior to that faithful conversation. So I'm wondering if the Premier can advise this committee as to the reason for his opposition to the landfill search. Was it a lack of belief in the feasibility? Was it the money? Was it both? Or did he not see these victims' family as actual human?
The Honourable First Minister.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just asking for some documents to be brought into the chamber so I can share them for all members of the committee. These are in reference to an article published by Global News on December 8th, 2022. The headline is Manitoba NDP supports Prairie Green landfill search, calls on province's support amid homicide investigation. So as I was sharing with you and the committee last we met, this scrum happened on December 8th, which would have been the State of the Province address that year. Most people would remember this as Heather Stephenson's last State of the Province, and a remarkably poor received speech at that, I would add. It was full of contrast and political attacks, which have since been disproven, and really left a lot of people in the room with a bad taste in their mouths, but such as it is, that was the final State of the Province that Heather Stephenson got to deliver. Anyway, so we scrummed on the day, and the comments that I made are reflected in this news report, and so we'll of course share copies with this. And you know, it's important to understand that these families have been through a lot. I've always respected the perspicacity, the intellect, the smarts of the young spokespeople who've been leading the charge. And Cambria in particular, because her words were invoked by myself the last time we met at this committee, has been an eloquent and articulate speaker. And so her comments that she made to the general public, that she made for all Manitobans to hear, are the words that I referred to, and moving me. And when I say moving me, what I mean is when I hear somebody with that level of smarts articulating their call for human dignity in such an insightful and passionate way, it moves me for a few reasons. One, because I wondered why the PC government of the day did not respect the dignity of these family members or their lost loved ones. But two, I just tend to get fired up when I hear people who are advocating for themselves and do so in an excellent, thoughtful way. And so this was an important inflection point of sorts when she made the comments about our lives not feasible. Because I think it was one of the first times that we saw that even though Heather Stephenson and Marnie Larkin and the 2023 PC campaign would try to turn the search of the Prairie Green landfill into a political wedge issue, that they had met their match with one young Cambria. And over the ensuing 10 or 11 months from the point roughly that I'm speaking about here on the calendar, we saw that happen time and time again. Politicians have a responsibility not to exacerbate divisions within the society, at the very least. One would hope that politicians could also unify people and provide a positive vision for the future. But when it comes to not exacerbating divisions in the society, the PCs not only failed to uphold that responsibility, they made the intent decision to go against it. And they sought to divide Manitobans for what they thought would be political gain. I'm happy to report that that was rejected by the people of Manitoba, and that the Prairie Green landfill is being searched. In fact, I was at the Prairie Green landfill earlier today, and look forward to updating Manitobans on the progress we're making very soon.
The Honourable Member for Fort Garry.
It's concerning that the Premier now on 3 occasions have been asked to be accountable to Manitobans as to why he was initially opposed to the landfill search. But he referenced this global news article from December 8th. I've obtained it. I've actually watched the video. The headline of that video actually doesn't reflect what was said in the video. This is what the Premier says. I take seriously technical considerations, feasibility, safety, people conducting the search has to be first and foremost. And so at this point in the video, he basically is repeating PC talking points. He then goes on and says, when I look at the grieving daughter, pair of grieving daughters, I look at the grieving family members, I think it's important to make an effort. He never says what that effort is. He never says he supports a full search of the landfill. He never promises any money to pay for the landfill. So I'll ask the Premier, given his media comments, what was his position on December 8th, and what search of the landfill, in what manner was he talking about?
The Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Chair. The question asked by the member for Gary talks about a matter and an issue that is obviously top of mind for Manitobans. And what I want to share and what I want to offer is the approach that I've had the immense privilege to witness over the past several years, even before becoming an elected person, just as a member of our communities here in Manitoba. that I've seen from Indigenous MLAs in our caucus, including the Premier. And it's been really very humbling to witness Indigenous leadership which has made very clear supports families, MMIWG2S families, which supports Indigenous communities and voices, being leaders in the approach that our government takes on really important issues. It is a really incredibly powerful experience to hold space with Indigenous communities, to listen to survivors, to listen to families. I've had the privilege of attending events hosted by Indigenous ministers, MLAs, who have hosted annual events for families, MMIWG2S families, over the past many, many years. And one event in particular stands out to me. It was many years ago now, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, somewhere around there. And it was hosted by the now Minister for Families and Minister for Housing, Addictions, and Homelessness. And it was for families at Christmas time. It's an annual dinner that they would host. And being in that space for this annual holiday event, Christmas event, where families, so many families, would come and share a Christmas meal, holiday meal. Their kids, everybody got gifts. Kids got gifts. And these are families who have endured and survived incredible trauma, who navigate systems which still enact harm on their families. And it was humbling to be in that space and to see the joy that was created in that space for these families who show up every year, sometimes new families, due to the ongoing targeting of Indigenous women and girls in Two-Spirited, unfortunately. New families sometimes are in those spaces. And it was something else for me to be in that space and to see leadership, not in maybe the ways in our roles now that we think about leadership, political leadership. It was incredible to see the impacts of leadership in community, on the front lines, in a grassroots way. And it's been, over the years, been really, really, again, humbling to witness that level of leadership in community and service in community, and to see that continue into the roles that folks are now in government. And something that I learned many years ago, and that I continue to be reminded by the Premier, by Minister of Families, Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness and Mental Health, by several of our colleagues who are Indigenous, Métis, is the importance of letting and making space for families to lead the way. And we see that, and we've seen that in the approach in terms of the landfill search, the prioritization of ensuring that families' voices are leading the way. And it's a deep, deep lesson that I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to learn from folks in caucus and on our team. And it's certainly something that we continue to hear and see from leaders, including the Premier, in terms of whose voices should be centered in this work and conversation.
Before I recognize the leader of the official opposition, I just ask the Deputy Premier to introduce their staff.
I'm joined right now by, my friend and staff. First name wanted, desired here, Charlie. And last name again, Manson, that's right. Mancini, Mason, Mancini. And the clerk remains here. Thanks.
Thank you. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. And you know what, I've had the pleasure of being elected in 2011 and spent, you know, I guess I'm starting my 15th year here. Make sure that, you know, as you're walking around the building and getting to know people and just saying good morning, and doesn't matter what side of the house they work for, whether it's the civil service or staff from the NDP or the Liberals or our staff. And I appreciate, to a point, the Deputy Premier's position that it is a large building, and you know, some people that possibly work in this building, you might not have ever met them or something along those lines. But you know, we're seeing evidence again today, Honorable Chairperson, as I've put on the record before, the fact that the Premier continues to not only dodge estimates and QP processes and fails to answer questions, but then I don't know how, when we're in Executive Council estimates, asking questions on behalf of hardworking Manitobans on Budget 2024, making sure that this NDP government is using and spending and being prudent with their finances. I just want to welcome Mr. Mazzini into the chamber as well, because it might be a while to have the conversation, and it is upsetting, but it's telling, Honorable Chairperson. I mean, you can't give me a facial expression or a nod or anything else. I'm not asking you to, but it is telling that a staff person who has come in to assist a minister, also like the Deputy Premier, and it's unfortunate that the Deputy Premier themselves doesn't necessarily know who is working with them. It's unfortunate. But that being said, we heard from the member for Fort Garry, and we've seen evidence. We've seen evidence, Honorable Chairperson, and you've seen it, but I'm not asking you to confirm nor deny, that the NDP are having troubles keeping staff. We know that. They could stay for a few years until the next election. What has the NDP done? They've hired, what was the number? 694 new employees to the tune of almost $40 million, Honorable Chairperson. And they're having troubles keeping staff. They're losing staff. They've increased wages like crazy, but yet why? Why are they losing staff? Toxicity is the answer. Dysfunction is the answer. And according to the former NDP MLA for Fort Garry, who is now the MLA for Fort Garry, sitting as an independent, abusive environment on the NDP side. It's unfortunate. That being said, I'll ask the Deputy Premier quick question. The NDP and this Premier had asked and had promised to enhance the renter tax credit. They told Manitobans struggling with rising rents that they would increase the credit to $700, but the NDP, as we already know, are not as advertised. And so when it came time to take action, they increased the credit to $575. For quick math, because I know NDP math is a little off, That's $125 short what they guaranteed. Why?
The Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to my my friend, staff member here, Mr. Mancini, and the clerk for their support. You know, it's interesting that the leader of the opposition chooses to shine a light on the fact that under the previous PC government, they made life less affordable, more expensive for renters. I welcome the opportunity to talk about how our government and our Minister of Finance, who's doing an excellent job, working tirelessly, and I know that. This is a person who truly works tirelessly, not only because he cares deeply for Manitobans and their well-being, and he's, you know, unapologetically committed to making this province a better place for all Manitobans, but quite frankly, he has to work tirelessly to clean up the massive fiscal mess that was left behind by the previous PC administration. And you know, it's wonderful to see what our Minister of Finance and our government has been able to do already. First budget, 21 ways to save, making life more affordable for Manitobans. Again, doing the work of repairing the damage done to the fiscal health of this province by the previous PC government, who went out of their way to make life more expensive for renters in this province. It's truly a shameful record. You know, the member opposite, the leader of the opposition, talks about all of the staff, all the folks who are eager to work with our government to make healthcare better, education stronger, life more affordable. He's correct when he says that folks have been hired under our administration. Our government has hired a net new 873 healthcare workers to the healthcare system. Under the previous PC government's failed leadership, we lost hundreds of folks from the healthcare system. We lost nurse practitioners, we lost paramedics, we lost a whole host of allied healthcare professionals, technologists, nurses, physicians, healthcare aides, healthcare support staff, facility support staff workers, environmental workers, housekeeping. We lost so many people from the front lines of the services that Manitobans depend on, because for 7.5 years, the leader of the opposition was proud, almost eager. I think one could say he was eager to cut, slash services, drive people away out of the province. The Minister of Finance, or Minister of Finance, recently shared the over 5,000 folks who are working, newly hired in Manitoba. Private business, hiring people, public services, hiring people. Under our government, it's become very clear to Manitobans that there's a new approach being taken that's prioritizing making sure that Manitobans have opportunities for good employment, and that there's a minister responsible for the fiscal well-being of this province that cares deeply about taking an approach that is sustainable and responsible, something we didn't have for 7.5 years under the previous PC administration. And so again, I certainly welcome the opportunity to talk about all the folks that are being hired under our government. We set a really ambitious target, something that was never done by the leader of the opposition when he had the opportunity to do so. He didn't set any targets, and then were able to go to Manitobans and share the news about how they achieved it transparently. They didn't do any of that under our administration within our first year of our mandate that we were so privileged to be given by Manitobans. We set an incredibly ambitious target, 1,000 net new healthcare workers, my goodness. Admittedly, I thought to myself, oof, that is pretty ambitious. It's going to require a level of commitment that Manitobans have not seen for several years. And yet we knew it was the right thing to do. And so recently we were able to share with Manitobans that we are well on track to achieve that net new 1,000 healthcare worker target. 873 have been brought into the healthcare system. And every day I learn of more folks. I actually was at an event this morning and met someone who's eager to join the front lines as well. So happy to share more about that if the leader of the opposition wants to ask.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I appreciate the advice from the Deputy Premier, the Health Minister, on the questions I should or should not be asking, because it just doesn't seem that they are willing to give any answers anyways. So I should almost turn the floor over to them and have them tell me what questions they would actually answer. So far, 5 minutes of them being in the chair, not much. Not much that we can report back to Manitobans, Mr. Chair. I can imagine those caucus meetings are quite entertaining with this level of dodging and denying to answer anything. Since I have the Health Minister in the chair, I'll ask them. It's unfortunate that, again, the Health Minister even talks about the fact that they went out with another minister and, again, up to a podium. Premier said the other day that he's not going to go to a podium, I quote, not going to go to the podium unless the work has been done. Well, this Health Minister took a long ride out to Carberry, stood in front of a podium, patted themselves on the back. Community members had baked cookies, brought them out for the Health Minister and the Premier. I don't think they shared any of those cookies anywhere. Matter of fact, I think the members of Carberry, community members of Carberry, are probably asking for their cookies back, Honourable Chairperson. I don't know if you received any cookies or not, but I tell you, the promises made by this Health Minister and the MLA for Fort Rouge, the Premier, are just starting to pile up on broken promises. The question I had asked to the Health Minister on the enhancing the renter tax credit, they didn't give any answers to the question I had asked. Was I surprised? Not really. They put on misinformation, disinformation on the record. Our government had froze rent increases for years. And just to reiterate, put back on the record that the NDP ran on the promise that if they were elected, they would increase the tax credit to $700, and they got in and they put it to $575, $125 short. Not surprising. I know the Minister of Finance is chomping at the bit. He'd potentially like to answer some questions. I don't know if he's got any answers either, really. Because it was actually the Finance Minister that was at a debate with me on education and early childhood learning. And we were both at the debate. And I'm just going to reference another promise that this NDP government made under this Premier, and that's $10 a day summer daycare pledge. It was a cornerstone for their campaign. Well, to the Premier, to the Deputy Premier, to the Health Minister, summer's come and gone. Another broken promise. That's not surprising though, because that's their MO. That's their MO, Honorable Speaker. They remained silent as parents pleaded for answers. And on this one, it's not just the Premier or the Deputy Premier, this is definitely the Finance Minister. Has to be held accountable for this one. The money was there, could have got it done, didn't. So I guess my question, since the Health Minister is not going to answer it anyways, is can they confirm, yes or no, that what the Premier put on the record the other day, that the Lac du Bonny personal care home is going to cost $66.4 million, and have they shared, and how have they shared that with the community of Lac du Bonny and the committee?
The Honourable First Minister.
Yes, the Lac du Bonny personal care home is going to cost $66.4 million. We've been hard at work, carrying out a bunch of engagement, due diligence, if you will, on some aspects of this. I can also tell you that I've very recently received an invitation letter to meet with local leadership, and we will assent to that request. It's a lot of good news to share here. I know that CBC Radio was broadcasting, I believe, from Lac du Bonny last week. And of course, you know, as I alluded to earlier, there's that skepticism out of having an MLA in government, the member opposite for 2 terms, not building a personal care home. And so I would be happy to meet with leadership once we can find some time to schedule that in, to provide an update, to provide reassurance, and again, to repeat that commitment that even if I have to go down on my birthday, the last day of the year, with my own shovel, we will break ground on this project this year. Of course, the personal care home challenge that we inherited from the PCs is going to take years to fix, and will involve investments not just in Lac du Bonny, but in other communities, including here in Winnipeg. Time was, Brian Pallister, he who shall not be named by the members opposite, campaigned in the 2016 election on a bid, a promise, a commitment to build 1,200 personal care home beds. Well, once he was chased out of the building by the member opposite and the rest of the colleagues who stuck behind to cheer on Heather Stephenson, and once Heather Stephenson was shown the door by the people of Manitoba, there were 0 personal care home beds built. 0. And not only were there 0 personal care home beds built, but we actually suffered a net loss of personal care home beds. And that's because one of the facilities, I believe it was Parkview Place, you know, maybe a kilometer away from where we sit right now, actually closed, and those beds were not replaced. So, you know, the member opposite, I guess, does have a duty to advocate for the people of Lac du Bonny, who he did not build a personal care home for, despite being at the government table for 2 terms. And as a result, yes, you should ask us questions about where the PCs couldn't build it, when and how will the NDP build it. I invite him to continue to ask these questions, and as I committed to him on Wednesday, when we do drag that podium back out to Lac du Bonnie, and there's a personal care home building behind said podium, he can attend that press conference too, just as he did attend the press conference on March 21st of this year. Of course, it was such a good news story, he ran and reported to the Clipper that this was, quote, great news, end quote. And I agree. It is great news that there's an NDP government that's willing to do things that the PCs failed to accomplish. So the beds there will certainly help, but again, there are other personal care home sites in the province that we're going to have to construct. We also know that it's an integrated system for many Manitobans who would be coming from hospital and eventually needing to be paneled for a personal care home or a long-term care facility. But one of the issues and challenges that emerged under the PC time in office, in part due to them closing emergency rooms, is a lack of transitional care facilities. And so here I want to thank the Minister of Health for their excellent work to stand up many, many transitional care beds. Of course, you've heard them in question period sharing the impressive number of transitional care facilities that they've been able to construct and transitional care beds that they've been able to add. And so again, we are improving healthcare, we are improving seniors care, we're making life better in Lac du Bonnie constituency, as well as right across the great province of Manitoba. So an important subject to be sure, and one that I'm always happy to engage in and you know, find it important to respond to. So more good news to come for Lac du Bonnie, more good news to come for other folks who are cheering on the long-term care sector here in Manitoba.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Chairperson, and again, here we go. Premier of Manitoba, the artist of the flip-flop, the other day, and I know that he's been dodging this whole process, so he's sometimes taking a deep breath and refocusing, regaining his own composure, especially when there's some hard-hitting questions being said here in the chamber. Just to remind the member, under his his role model, Greg Selinger, and the former NDP government, they had closed 22 plus emergency rooms all across Manitoba. He continues to dodge the facts, even in today's chamber. A couple days ago, he mentioned that his next trip to Lac du Bonnie was going to be a ribbon cutting on the personal care home. Today he's talking that he received a letter from the community, and I told him that the other day. So I'm glad that I could help him with his inbox, as opposed to his health minister hitting delete and on unread emails. That's the record of this premier and the health minister and some of his other ministers. They just hit delete. And so now he is agreeing to meeting with people, Lac du Bonnie community. Great. As a premier, came out to Lac du Bonnie and re-announced what we had already announced. Said that the shovel's going to be in the ground sometime this year, and his birthday is late December. And even if on his birthday he's going to bring a shovel. Well, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't get outside the perimeter often, but he's going to need more than a shovel, because the ground is going to be frozen. But that being said, we want to talk about another broken promise by this premier. And he'll have to read Hansard about the non-answers from the health minister to our questions here in the chamber, as well as, again, he just seemed to want to dodge the process. Fact is that he stood up again. Again, the theme is not only broken promises, but it's the fact that he will say anything, Honorable Speaker. He will say anything to get elected and to hold on to power. And I think more and more Manitobans are starting to see that. Because if there's not a photo op opportunity, much like we've said here earlier, when the cameras are off, the microphones are off, different individual. But he stood up on the stage during the election that he was going to fix bail reform, that he promised that and there's going to be tragic consequences. Stood on the debate stage, misled Manitobans about his ability to affect bail at the provincial level, misled Manitobans because he knew deep down that he had no ability to do that because that's a federal level. But no, he promised it, and he said he doubled down, tripled down, much like his cost estimate on the Electabonny personal care home, and he repeated it again today, $66.4 million. He doubled down. He said he's going to not only fix bail reform, but he's going to do it within 100 days of taking office. Very misleading. Again, because it falls under federal jurisdiction. So what are we seeing? We're seeing crime is up. We're seeing stabbing. We're seeing theft. We're seeing vandalism. We're seeing repeat offenders day in, day out, committing crimes on our streets. Can't fix it, and he's not fixing it because he has no plan. He has no plan. Matter of fact, what his plan is he's going to punish those employees and employers who are now starting to take things into their own hands and let the criminals go. That's his MO. I wish he would just apologize to Manitobans for his broken promises on bail reform.
The Honourable First Minister.
So our action on bail reform has been commended by the National Police Federation. That is the representative of the frontline RCMP officers who work both in Manitoba and across the country. In fact, Brian Sauvé, President and CEO of the National Police Federation, said, and I quote, "We applaud the Manitoba government for their continued commitment to enacting smart and progressive approaches to Canada's bail system," end quote. Seems like there are actions that a provincial government can take on both public safety specifically, or generally, and bail reform specifically. And no less a group than the National Police Federation said that not only was this possible, but Manitoba is leading the way, and they encourage other provinces to follow our lead. It's nice in the past year that Manitoba is able to say we're leading in a lot of different areas. You didn't hear that very often under Brian Pallister or Heather Stephenson. And so there's a lot of optimism out there. When it comes to the Electabonny personal care home, again, $66.4 million. We're talking the same scope, I believe, 95 beds. This is all contained within press releases. And so the member opposite tries to feign like, there's a air of, suspicion in his voice when he asks these questions, but it's right there on the public record for him to refer to. Though I will say that as somebody who's spent a lot of time in the country, you can dig a hole in the wintertime. I've had to do it, unfortunately. And basically the technique is you light a fire at the site that you want to dig. You let it burn for some time and heat the ground. And then, of course, you extinguish the blaze and start digging. And lo and behold, it is possible to use a shovel to dig a hole in rural Manitoba in the wintertime. So I don't know if the member opposite doesn't get out of the perimeter very often, but those of us who do would be able to share tons of useful information with him, such as that. But again, public safety is an important issue. We have the Retail Theft Initiative. We have the Retail Theft Initiative to point to, which is we have the Retail Theft Initiative to point to.
Order. So I'll just remind all members that me in this chair, I'm a representative of the speaker. This is a neutral role. And I'm just here to keep this committee moving forward. The speaker has recently ruled on a similar issue, and I'd ask that I not be brought into debate. The Honorable First Minister.
Thank you. So again, the Retail Theft Initiative has been very well received. We've received a lot of correspondence from people who have said, as a business owner, that they feel it's made a difference in the community. They feel that it's made things safer for them. We held a public safety summit earlier in the year, and we partnered in a supporting role with the Retail Council of Canada to have a summit on retail theft. And on the Retail Theft Initiative in particular, you know, the media and the scrum that day were basically just saying, well, why don't you just extend it? Everyone loves this thing. And we took the time to say, well, we're going to work this up and see what the long-term viability of this approach is. And of course, if this is the best course forward, then we'll pursue that. But we need to work with the WPS and other partners in order to get it right. There's a retired judge who spoke that day at the Retail Council of Canada event. And I had a very, very, I guess, illuminating and inspiring reaction to the words that he was sharing from the stage. And what retired Judge Wyant was saying is that, you know, he just says in a very kind of straightforward and matter-of-fact way, yes, there is a need for more police officers. There is an important role for the justice system to play, but he also used the analogy of a train track. And he says, by the time you expect us to deal with the issues, we're the last stop on the train. And if you want to address a lot of the public safety issues, you need to intervene earlier on the tracks, upstream, if you will. Prevention, recreation, education in particular. And so that's why we're doing things like the school food program. PC said it was a bad idea. They're bringing back the person who said that to host their party event at the end of the month. We're busy feeding hungry kids.
The Honorable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. And so the Premier puts on the record for all Manitobans the fact that he knows that he had no plan. He had no plan to help with retail theft, vandalism, stabbing, theft, repeat offenses. Said he could fix bail reform within the first 100 days of being elected. We all know that's come and gone, so that record is on him. It's on you. So, Honorable Chairperson, it's unfortunate, but that will be his record as crime continues to increase and he continues to let the repeat offenders out on the streets because they know that they have a get-out-of-jail-free card with this Premier. Just take a look at past records. Many chances, many chances. With that, Honorable Chairperson, I'm going to concede the floor for 2 questions to the Leader of the Liberal Party for her to take 2 questions, or to ask 2 questions. So thank you.
The Honorable First Minister. The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable.
So there was a question within the remarks, so the First Minister will have a chance to respond. Honourable First Minister.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the member opposite daily, weekly runs out of things to ask about. The question period is opposition time. Question period is opposition time. And he, first of all, right from the very beginning, never used the two top sets of questions, except on maybe a rare occasion or two. But then he can't fill time with questions from the PC caucus. And I feel bad for, MLAs from constituencies like Lakeside or Agassiz who've been able to ask maybe one question, but the member opposite, time and time again, will prioritize other people to ask questions. So again, I got a lot of respect for my colleague from Tyndall Park, but the leader of the PC party has allowed her to ask 5, 6 more questions than any of the MLAs in the PC caucus. Imagine what it's like to be the MLA for Borderlands. And you're watching the leader of the PC party give time to the Liberals when the PC backbench doesn't get any time. I don't know what priorities the member for Borderlands would want to bring forward. Maybe he'd just say it's great to have a premier who appears on Golden West Radio regularly and provides an update to the people of his riding on all the great things that are going on in government. But certainly there must be some frustration with a PC leader who gives more time to a Liberal MLA than a PC one. And that's just in estimates. I mean, question period, and on and on and on. The leader of the opposition is supposed to be able to carry the day and ask questions. And it's just a commentary on the state of the PC party that they can't even, I guess, think of enough questions to carry the day in estimates or in question period. And so it's interesting that they've got a PC leadership contest underway. I don't know if this is going to be the long-term plan for the PC party of Manitoba. Personally, I don't think so. I think the party eventually will get stronger than it currently is under the member for Lac du Bonnet. First PC leader to lose the constituency of Tuxedo. So I think it's likely that they improve. But it's, I guess, the more positive way to look at it is it's not just the PC party's failing, maybe it's just the Manitoba NDP government is doing so many great things. Member opposite has a chance to raise questions about healthcare, he's gotten none. I guess he supports what we're doing with healthcare. Member opposite has time here to ask us about the economy. He doesn't have anything to say. So I guess he supports our economic development initiatives. Haven't been any questions on the environment. Guess he supports the climate plan. No questions about childcare from the member opposite. And so I suppose that the work of the Education and Early Learning Department is going very, very well. No questions about PC political staffers whose pensions were not even recognized by their former political masters. We had to, in this year's budget implementation bill, make sure that PC staffers' time in the former government could be recognized as pensionable earnings. We're fine with it. Again, people work hard. They deserve to be not only compensated in the form of pay, but also in the form of pensions. But there's no questions about that. So again, I can only assume that the leader of the PC party is grateful for that further evidence of us cleaning up the mess that they left behind. So there are many, many priorities that the member opposite could be raising and is not, and I therefore can only conclude that he supports our government's agenda on each and every one of those areas that he neglects to raise in his estimates time. And I'm sure there'll be some sort of spin or message about how this is all part of some grand scheme, but really just appears that there's a leader of the opposition who could perhaps apply himself more to the job that he's been entrusted with, which is a very sacred responsibility and an important role to perform in our parliamentary democracy. And look at that, I'm leaving time on the board.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. And I'm going to keep this short because we are very tight for time here this afternoon. But I do want it on the record how much I appreciate the willingness of the interim leader for the official opposition for sharing time outside of his caucus as well. There are 57 MLAs in this House, and I would argue, which checks out with the question I'm going to be asking the Premier, I would argue that is a very democratic way to use his time. So I would like to thank him for that. My question for the Premier is, I'm hoping he can explain to the House, why would the government allow any piece of legislation to go through first reading, second reading, committee, and never mind a committee with incredible testimony and showing of support for the legislation, to then be reported to the House, but then be prevented by this government to move forward to third reading and a vote? How is this democratic? Why would a government do this, stall legislation at this point in time?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, there's a number of technical, I guess, details that we could get into, but I guess part of the answer to the question that the member is seeking is that the official opposition has negotiated with us a schedule for the remainder of this sitting, and it involved us calling estimates this afternoon. And so I think that there's going to be more estimates time next week from what I understand, and so that is foregone bill debate time. So that's part of the answer. I think there's a broader theoretical question that the member is bringing forward, and without granting the presuppositions that she advances in her preamble, I would say private members' legislation that comes forward has an important role to play. I can think back, I think, to the first private member's bill that I brought forward, and it had to do with ensuring that there were adequate policies at post-secondary institutions to be able to address sexual misconduct and other terrible occurrences on campuses in Manitoba. And this was effectively a carryover from a previous NDP government piece of legislation, and so it applied, if I recall correctly, to 7 universities and then community colleges, which are publicly funded. Government of the day, led by Ian Wishart, who was the education minister at the time, somebody that I respected and found pleasant to work with, they talked it out, right? And a short time later, they brought in their own version of the bill, we could say. And their version of the bill actually expanded the scope of what was contemplated in the legislation to also include private vocational institutions, PVIs as they're called, in some of the post-secondary circles. And so obviously I was a little chippy, shall we say, in the House on the day that I had a chance to maybe have a little back and forth with them. But with the benefit of hindsight, I think I can legitimately say that the bill was better having been expanded. Like there are many students who go to a Herzing College or a Robertson College or some of these private institutions, right? And so, yeah, I think, you know, the government of the day, you know, you never would have caught me saying this at the time, but, you know, there was an improvement there. And so sometimes I do think that the role that private members' legislation can play is to put an issue that is important, that does serve a social good, that does have a public priority forward, and then there may be deliberations and discussions about whether that is the full scope required to deal with an issue in all of its substantiveness. Speaking hypothetically, I also know that there are limits as to what private members' bills can do. We know that, for instance, if something is to require money to be spent, it has to be a government initiative. It has to have that royal recommendation, designation, and Minister of the Crown would need to introduce it. So that's just a hypothetical scenario that I'm sharing about why something that's taken up as a legitimate public policy issue might need to move forward as a government initiative. The member and I actually share something in common, which is that we both, I think, engaged with the topic of Orange Shirt Day being recognized in Manitoba. And here I would just indicate that I think that shared experience, shall I say, shows how this can evolve over time too. I brought forward, I think it was in 2017, a Recognition Day bill to recognize Orange Shirt Day. I brought it forward as a Recognition Day because I was told that we couldn't do a statutory holiday as opposition because it would involve spending money, because government resources would be used to pay people, overtime pay, etc. I think my colleague from Keewatin received the same advice. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ledge Council, but I believe in time they gave different advice to the member opposite, and she was able to bring it forward. So just to indicate, and then eventually our government brought this in, made it law, and Orange Shirt Day is now a statutory holiday. So just to indicate that there is flexibility when it comes to the legislative process and multiple ways for things to come forward.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Chairperson, bringing the bill forward to third reading is completely at the discretion of the government. They have the ability to do it at the drop of a dime. All they have to do is snap their fingers and the bill will go to a vote at third reading. And I believe that the survivors and those who desperately need this legislation enacted deserve for it to go to third reading. And my hope is that the Premier would see this as well. We have tried to negotiate it. Even up until today, I have asked for leave to allow it to go to third reading and a vote, and it was denied by the government House Leader. We have tried going through media, Honourable Chairperson. We have worked with organizations here in Manitoba, Honourable Chairperson. We have lobbied other MLAs, different jurisdictions. Ontario supports the legislation. The federal government supports the legislation. We have municipal councillors who support the legislation. We have members of parliament, which I know this NDP government supports, such as Leah Gazan, who supports Kira's Law, Bill 209. Yet this government does not want to seem to get on board. I'm very grateful that the PCs here in Manitoba have supported the legislation. At the very least, the Premier could allow for it to go to a vote at third reading. Otherwise, why would he have allowed it to go this far through the legislative process? So my question for the Premier is, for those survivors who came and presented at committee, that took incredible courage. What does he have to say to them? Why would he allow it to go this far if he knew he was going to stall it at this point in time?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, first I would thank all the people who spoke at committee for the courage and for the preparation work and for the thoughtfulness and for the emotional labor that was required for them to speak in that venue. The second thing that I would say is that our government is listening to you. We agree with the member for Tyndall Park that there's an important priority here, a substantive public policy issue that needs to get addressed. And we are working on this issue. And so I think extending the offer to have a committee was so that we could give a forum for these folks to express their perspectives. And our Minister of Justice was there on behalf of our government as well as other members of our team to listen to you. And we take seriously everything that was shared, and we are working on this priority. I also know that those who lead the judiciary are working on this broad set of issues as well too. And they are making important progress that I think will help to ensure that our society and the administration of justice within it will continue the evolution of more closely resembling our society and its needs as we go forward into time, as is necessary in our democracy and free society. And so we are working on this issue, and I did undertake and commit to the member that I was going to talk to the Minister of Justice about this. I will still do so. And I know that he has been working on this with his team as well, internal to government. And in saying that, I want to point out that I guess there is part of this that could be legislation or regulation. There's part of this that has to be policy. There's part of this that has to be dealt with by the judiciary, because we can't cross that divide, if you will, between the legislative and executive branches of government that separate us from the judicial branch of government. And there are probably resource questions as well, meaning there's aspects of this that only government would be able to bring forward. And that's not to say that the members' advocacy and legislating this hasn't been important. It certainly has been very important. It's been very important to us. It's been very important to everybody who's participated in the process, including the people who spoke at committee. And her contributions are recognized by me and will be recognized by the people of Manitoba as we continue to work this forward. And so I just more than anything want to reassure her that, you know, her work is valid and valued and recognized by me and by our team, and will continue to work with her to be able to make sure that we do right by the survivors and the broader community, I think, who will all benefit from this. And so let's keep working together.
Order. The hour being 5 p.m. Committee rise. Call in the speaker. The hour being 5 p.m., this House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 1:30 p.m. on Monday, October 28th.